call up Dr. Tonya Fleck. She has been a doctor for the last 10 years. She received her doctorate in naturopathic medicine in the Southwest. And she founded and started St. Cruz Naturopathic Center on, is it Center? Is that right? Chestnut, that wraps around downtown. And she, you know, if you don't know about naturopathic medicine, I think I'm going to have her say a few words because I think there's a lot of like misconceived notions and what is that? And so I wanted her to talk about what naturopathic medicine is, so you know, and then her specialty, of course, specifically. But she has a really cool gift for you guys. Hopefully you got it and checked in with you. And I really recommend you taking her up on it. Hopefully you'll go over that a little bit. Okay. So we have always wanted to bridge the gap to have Western medicine, naturopathic medicine, I'm an Eastern doctor, you know, integrative medicine, integrative concepts. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about one doctrine as any doctrine. Same with religion, same with beliefs. We just want to start facilitating you to be empowered enough to think for yourself. So any of the concepts or things that we introduce on stage here, you know, see where it lands, apply it if you're excited about it. I've always recommended B12 shots. I've only had one in my life, and it's been profound. And I'm so excited that we're now teaming up with them so we can go get some good caretaking. So you will do a way better job than me introducing naturopathic medicine in your background. So please, guys, give time.
My button's on?
Yeah,
okay.
Good. Do you want your water?
What a great lecture. Did Sage already leave? No, there she is. That was so great. You know, it's so great about money because it's one of those things that we all have, right? And we all have to deal with. There's a lot of cultures that don't necessarily deal with money, but we do, and we tend to want to ignore it and not feel empowered around it. So I'm really excited about that lecture. So thank you so much, Sage. And one of the things that links Sage's lecture with mine is that not only do we have money, right? We have to deal with money if we live in this society, but we have our bodies. So if we're here, if we're on this planet at this time, we have these bodies. Like them or not, we have them. So we might as well take care of them. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. And it feels so good to be here. You know how when things just happen? You know when they happen with grace and ease, you're like, you know you're on the right track. So I've been hearing more and more about the Santa Cruz Challenge, and the more I heard about it, and I heard about it more recently from a handful of my patients, and they were raving about it, and I said, I want to be a part of that. And so I'd actually never met Lita or Michelle, but I called them up and said, hey, I've heard of you guys, and they said, hey, we've heard of you, and we said, hey, let's get together. And so we did, and they said, we have one speaking slot left, and let's do it. So I'm really excited because one of the tenets of naturopathic medicine is doctor as teacher, and I'm really excited about people being empowered around having access to health and vitality, and I feel that the best way we can do that is through education. Knowledge is power, and so that's a lot of what the lecture is tonight. So it's not so much like, oh, where in our lives do we see stress, and how do we de-stress? You all know that, whether you're doing it or not is up to you, but we all know how to de-stress. This is more of a sort of physiology lecture about what's happening and how it's all linked together. So I'll just say a bit about naturopathic medicine so you kind of know who you're listening to. So as Michelle said, or as Lita said, I'm a naturopathic doctor. I came here right out of medical school in Arizona, so I've been practicing in Santa Cruz for 10 years. And naturopathic medicine, we're trained in the same basic sciences as conventional doctors. I order many of the same labs as conventional doctors do. I can write prescriptions in pharmaceuticals, although it's not my first choice to do so. And that's where the similarities end. What defines naturopathic medicine are really the treatment principles, which are here. The treatment principles are simply in line with the laws of nature, recognizing that your body knows exactly what it needs to do to heal itself. But if there's some imbalance, right, I'm fatigued, I've got this pain, I've got these headaches, I've got severe PMS, I'm dealing with depression and anxiety, whatever it is, that's the symptom. And of course it's important to treat the symptom, but as a naturopathic doctor, I'm always asking, well, what's the cause of that, right? So that's sort of what's like the tip of the iceberg that's peering above the water, right? But what's underneath of that, what's fueling that? And so within that, it's also very much a holistic approach because we are holistic beings, right? The conventional model is very reductionistic, and I love what we can do diagnostically in Western medicine. but they don't take a holistic approach. And we all know that who we are is holistic beings. We can't affect one area of the body without impacting all of the others. And so we'll talk a bit about that tonight. There's also a strong element of prevention, which I love. Again, the conventional model is very reactionary. Hooray for the emergency medicine we have access to. Thank goodness for that. And I think we all want to avoid it if we can. And so focusing on prevention is one of my favorite things to do. And I think that that's at least for a handful of you why you're doing what you're doing, right? Not only to feel good in this moment, but also to stay feeling good and to prevent disease from setting in down the road. So those are sort of the treatment principles. So that's who I am. That's the stance that I take. I don't know if I want to say anything else about myself. I'm married. I have a little boy who's almost 3 years old. I just want to eat him up every day. Life is good. And I just love this quote by Hippocrates. It's more important to know what kind of person has a disease than to know what kind of disease a person has. And I think it's fair to say the conventional model is really focused on disease and not necessarily looking at the person. And I think effective medicine is really taking into account the whole being. So when you get up in the morning or in the afternoon, the evening, whenever you're doing your classes and you're out there kickboxing, and I don't even know everything that you guys are doing, but one of the things that has you up and going is your adrenals. Love your adrenals, and they will love you. The conventional model doesn't recognize adrenal fatigue. The conventional model is more about being in diagnosable disease states. Adrenal fatigue, unless you're flatline, which no one here is, or else you wouldn't be here right now, it's really a spectrum. And sometimes people say, well, how do I know if I have adrenal fatigue? Well, I don't think the question is, do I have adrenal fatigue? Just where on the spectrum am I? And it's not a bad thing. It's just living responsibly, knowing that what I'm using to get me going and be effective in my life is something that I need to take care of, right? Just like our car or whatever else we use to take care of ourselves. So our adrenal glands are these little fatty things that just sit on top of our kidneys, just in case you were wondering where they were. They don't necessarily have a direct relationship with the kidneys, but a lot of times in Chinese medicine, when they talk about kidney, like kidney qi deficiency or kidney ailments, a lot of times it's actually adrenals in Western medicine. Did you guys know you're going to have a quiz? Yeah. Pay attention. No, this is nothing to memorize. Have no fear. But I just wanted to share a little bit about the importance of the adrenals and what they do, so that when we talk about some of the other things, it'll make a little sense. But basically, cholesterol is converted into pregnenolone, which gets converted into all of these other hormones. So all of our sex hormones, cortisol, aldosterone, which helps to manage our blood pressure. And so when we're stuck in a fight or flight state, which isn't necessarily why I was showing this, but the dark arrows are what happens when we get stuck in this fight or flight state. And that means everything's going to fuel cortisol, which is our survival hormone, that fight or flight. And everything else gets shut down. And this is what I think is so interesting, is that we are designed to survive. Our bodies are. And as conscious as we are, we have these little reptilian brains that haven't changed so much in billions of years, that are controlling our physiology. And so whether we don't actually really run from tigers in our culture, I don't think, but we do have stressful conversations with our mother-in-law. We do have deadlines. We do have stressors in our lives. And even when we're doing something we enjoy, like working out really hard, that reptilian brain says running from a tiger. And so the physiology that happens is that our body will shunt all of our blood and nutrients to our muscles. Our heart rate goes up, so we can shunt more blood to our muscles, so we can run faster, and also to our brain, so we can make smarter decisions, so we can survive. And so our body will pull nutrients from all over the body. I think of that picture of on the movie Titanic, right, when they're trying to avoid the iceberg, and they show all the people shoveling coal into the stoves down below, right? Those are our adrenals. They're working hard. And so a lot of the nutrients that feed our adrenals also feed our reproductive system. They are fuel for our thyroid. They're fuel for our feel-good neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. They go to our digestive tract, our reproductive system, right? The classic example is why don't you eat before you go to your workout? Because your digestion just shuts down. The body says, we ain't got no time to digest, right? We have to survive. And so that's what's happening. And so that's why I say love your adrenals. Even if you say, I don't really have a stressful life, I really enjoy my life. If you have an active life, that reptilian brain views that as a level of stress. So these are some of the most common adrenal fatigue symptoms. And, you know, oftentimes you may say, well, sometimes I feel that way and sometimes I don't. So fatigue, just a general sense of I just don't feel like I have as much energy as I should. Anxiety, and that's really common. It's not unusual for people to say, I feel wired, but I'm tired. And that's because you sort of get stuck on the pedal to the metal. When the adrenals get really tired, they start to, it's sort of like you're running on fumes, and it'll spout out cortisol randomly throughout the day. And that's what leads to a lack of sleep, which I'll say a little more about that. And so it's also not uncommon when I start to help people heal their adrenals for them to get tired first. And it's not that the herbs or the B12 shots or whatever I'm giving them is actually making them fatigued, but inherently underneath that anxiety is a level of fatigue. So now the body can finally calm down, rest, regroup, and then people start to feel better. And that usually happens pretty quick. People that say, gosh, I just catch everything that comes around, it's hard for me to stay healthy. Decreased libido. I always think of libido as sort of like the icing on the cake or the cherry on the top. You know, my patients come in with their A, B, C, D symptoms, and when they finally come in and they say, well, I kind of got my libido back, I just want to slap them on the forehead and say, you are healed. Because it's that hierarchy of needs. And in the world of that reptilian brain thinks we're only having sex to procreate. And if we're in a stressful state, the survival of the young isn't very strong. So that's why people have trouble getting pregnant and they go on vacation and all of a sudden they're pregnant, right? Because they're relaxed, now blood can flow back there. Mood swings, very commonly, just feeling irritable, edgy, even depressed, anxious. Salt, the adrenals love salt. Sugar and caffeine cravings, you know, we're just reaching, I need a little more energy. Chronic inflammation, sort of whatever type of inflammation is happening in the body. Low blood sugar symptoms, it's 99% of the time. Treat your adrenals and you'll notice that your blood sugar symptoms resolve. And then orthostatic hypotension, you know, that lightheadedness that you can feel going from sitting to standing. Mm-hmm. I know none of you have ever been in this situation, but this is just an example of that physiologic response, right? We're sitting in front of the computer and we have this cortisol burst because we're freaking out about something or feeling stressed about it. Again, even if it's something we enjoy doing, right? We have this cortisol spurt, and the cortisol spurt is to help us run from the tiger, but we don't run, right? Well, now you guys are, which is great, and that's going to keep off that spare tire. But what happens is the cortisol is in our system, and then it just sits there, and it sits around the middle, and that's that cortisol bump that you hear about. And this is the natural rhythm of cortisol. Our cortisol is designed to be released highest in the morning and then slowly decrease throughout the day. And it has an inverse relationship with melatonin. And melatonin is that really good hormone that helps us to get into deep sleep. And so as cortisol lowers, melatonin increases. And then as the sun starts to rise and melatonin lowers, cortisol increases. Now this is in a healthy state. When our adrenals are tired, they'll start to randomly spout out cortisol. And so one of the tests that pretty much the only test that we currently have to test adrenal function, which you don't have to do very often, you can just look at the symptoms and look at your lifestyle and know, is a 4-spot salivary test where you take your saliva 4 times throughout the day, like 8 a.m., noon, 4 p.m., and 8 o'clock at night. And for patients who have adrenal fatigue, oftentimes you'll see it's really low in the morning and then maybe it spikes in the afternoon and it's really high at bedtime. And then it's low, you know, it's just all over the place. And for people who are really burnt out, it's flatlined. And that's not a good place to be, and that doesn't feel good at all. And so one of the symptoms adrenal fatigue is I wake up between 1 and 3 a.m. What time is that in Chinese medicine? Is that 1 and 3 a.m.? Is that liver?
Oh, that's the liver.
Liver, yeah. So I don't really know the connection, but it's very common for people with adrenal fatigue to wake up feeling wired between 1 and 3 a.m. and not be able to get back to sleep. If we were to look at their cortisol levels, we would see that they're spiking at that time. How do you get that down? You heal the adrenals, which we'll talk a little bit about. One of the other things I just want to mention, because I didn't, is that when I'm doing an intake with someone, you know, you didn't arrive right here, right now, right? This body's been with you from day one. And so one of the things to look at is, am I doing that? One of the things to look at is how stressful has my life been? You know, was I pretty relaxed in my childhood? Did I feel pretty safe? Or was there abuse in the home? Or was there alcoholism? Or my mom was depressed and checked out? You know, did you have anxiety when you were younger? It's not uncommon, especially as children and teens, for us to get stuck in that place and just be wired. And then here we are in our 30s and our 40s and we're just burnt out. Even though we've created a life that we love, we get stuck in that place. So that's that. Yeah, my patients who work in EMS, my husband worked as a paramedic for 16 years and I just, get out of there. And I get we have to have EMS. I just don't want my patients and my family and people that I know to work nights because it's really hard on the body. So this is what I was saying about melatonin. Melatonin is one of the body's main antioxidants, and actually it's really good that this came up because I actually didn't mention this in the treatment section. But one of the ways to lower that cortisol spurt at night is to take melatonin when you go to bed, because melatonin will sit on those receptors and tell cortisol to go away. So it's a way of reminding the body to kind of reset the clock. No, you should be producing melatonin now, not cortisol. Melatonin is an antioxidant. It's non-addictive. It's completely safe. Most doses come in about 3 milligrams. My patients with cancer, I have them on 20 milligrams. So don't be afraid of melatonin. Give it a try and see if you like it. There was a study I was just citing where they found that it was a nurses study, and they found that nurses had higher levels of breast cancer, and their conclusion was that they had lower levels of melatonin. So melatonin is your friend. So andropause, I just wanted to mention this because we don't talk about it. We talk about menopause. Everyone knows what menopause is, right? So menopause being the cessation of menses. Men go through an andropause, andro meaning androgens, which are basically testosterone. And one of the things that happens is that when we go through, well, I'll talk about this and then I'll talk about menopause for a second, but it's very common for men to go through this andropause where they start to have adrenal fatigue. And as we saw with the adrenals, when we're stuck in that pathway that you've memorized, when we're stuck in that pathway, that cortisol, the pregnenolone is getting converted all to cortisol, right? Shoveling it all in there. And so nutrients get shunted away from the reproductive system, so the body's not making as much testosterone anymore. So one of the ways of healing andropause and helping men to recover is treating the adrenals. Sometimes a little testosterone is nice as well and not very harmful. So this doesn't have to be for men because this can be women as well. And one of the things I wanted to say before I go into this list is with menopause, you know, you saw that the adrenals take cholesterol and other hormones and create sex hormones, right? And so when our bodies as women, when we stop producing estrogen and progesterone through our ovaries, right, that's the definition of menopause, we're not ovulating anymore. Our body will go to our adrenals and kind of tug at them and say, give me something here, give me some hormones. And so when our adrenals are healthy, there's a tendency to have an easier time through menopause. And it's also not common for women to say, I never had blank before I went through menopause. I never had high cholesterol, I never had depression, I never had this or that, I never had fatigue, and oftentimes it's because the adrenals were really tired and then it was just that kind of last tug. And so these are common in men but also in women as well. Decrease in strength and performance, having a lack of energy. A lot of these are what testosterone does for us. Lower libido, feeling grumpy or depressed, testosterone gives men and women that drive, that edge. And so oftentimes when that's lacking, it's low testosterone, low muscle mass, right? Difficulty building muscle, difficulty, recent work deterioration, erections aren't as strong, and are you falling
asleep after dinner?
Oh, falling asleep after dinner. Might have just eaten too much, but that can be a sign. So before we go, should I save questions for the end? Do you guys have a preference, or?
At the end.
Okay. So how do we heal the adrenals? Well, certainly, as I mentioned, we can recognize when we're feeling stressed and do whatever we need to do to decompress, and I'm not necessarily here to talk with you about that. You all know where to reach for those. But this is more diet and lifestyle, and I'm actually going to talk more about supplements. Diet, you know, just don't, you already know this stuff. Don't eat things out of a box. We're so blessed to be here in Santa Cruz. Shop the farmer's market, eat local, eat what's in season, all that good stuff. Lifestyle, stress release. And then supplements, which I'll go through a little more in detail. The adrenals love B vitamins and vitamin C. If there's just one thing that you want to try for a month, get a good B complex and start taking a few grams of vitamin C a day, maybe for the next 4 weeks. You know, just get a month's supply. It makes such a difference in your energy level. And it's not that false qi, right? In Chinese medicine, I love that term, false qi, which is what we get after having caffeine or, you know, some stimulant, right? This is true qi. You just notice, wow, I could do another one of those workouts, or it's 9 o'clock at night and I'm not ready to fall over on my face. Excuse me. We'll talk about herbs. I love herbs. B12 shots and nutritional therapies, IV nutrition. We're going to go through herbs. Herbs are really great. Our DNA is very similar to that of herbs. Our body just recognizes them. It's not hard to process. Our body loves herbs. And I'm trained in Western herbs, which are the ones that I'm going to talk about. There are a few maybe Eastern herbs that overlap. But I'm a big fan of them. And B12 shots. So my gift to you is a free B12 B complex shot. And if you didn't get a yellow piece of paper with that attached, grab one on your way out. And the reason that we do B12 shots, and I apologize, they didn't come printed out the way I'd hoped they would. Some of this information was going to be on the back of the cards, but they're identical on both sides, which wasn't my intention. And so my clinic, and that's why I attached a business card as well, because that has our website as well as our address on it. We're right downtown on Chestnut Street, super accessible. And so the reason that we offer B12 shots, it's a great way to bypass the gastrointestinal tract and get high-dose nutrients directly into your bloodstream. You know, people say, well, I eat healthy, or maybe even I take B vitamins. But just because we take something, there's no guarantee that you're actually absorbing it. And so when we do the B12 shots, you get high-dose nutrients directly into your bloodstream. I don't know if you've ever taken B vitamins and gotten sort of a metallic-y taste in your mouth, but sometimes I'm still giving the shot, which takes about 4 seconds, and people say, oh, I can taste it, because our blood is circulating that quick. And so all the B vitamins are water soluble. There's no toxicity. You can't overdose on them. And it's one of the best ways to support your adrenals. So that's my gift to you. We have a B12 happy hour on Wednesdays, and we ask that you don't come in during that time. So just call and schedule an appointment, and it's on there. And I can answer questions about that afterwards. And then IV nutritional therapies, it's what I just shared, you know, times 10. And you have to be a patient to receive those, but I just wanted to mention it. There's a physician who coined the term, it was Dr. Myers, who created the Myers cocktail, which is about 10 grams of vitamin C, all the really good B vitamins, and a bunch of minerals. And we just IV it. We just put it right in. And so patients who are really adrenally fatigued, oftentimes a series of 3 IVs, even after the first one, they're just like, whoa, it feels so good. And it saturates the cells with all of these nutrients. So I just wanted to mention that. So adaptogens, how did the time go so quick? Adaptogens are just that, so I'll move through this a little quickly so we have some time for questions. They help to increase the health and vitality. They basically do that. They're adaptogens for the herbs. Adaptogens for the adrenals. Our adrenals, as I mentioned, are stress glands. And so I have this great example. I have this patient who came in, and all she came in for was B12 shots. And my point isn't that it was the B12 shots, but just that we were supporting her adrenals. She's a police officer, and she's also a mom. And she said, I'm just wired all the time. I work in a male-dominated world. My job itself is extremely stressful, and I just can't seem to calm down at night. So we supported her adrenals, and it's great. I loved it. She came back, and she said, I now, by the time I leave work and get home, I'm like cool as a cucumber. I can deal with my teenage son, and that's the sign of healthy adrenals. We can still respond to stress, but when the stress is over, we come back to baseline, and that's one of the signs of low adrenals is we have a stressful event, and then an hour later, we're still feeling it, right? Like our mind knows it's not there anymore. So these are some of my favorite herbs. I highly recommend getting a blend, and if you want to write these down, because we live here, we have access to good quality herbs, or lots of health food stores. Gaia is great. Gaia Herb Company, they have their own farm, they process all their own herbs there. And then Herb Farm, PHRM, those are two really good companies. There may be others that are accessible out there, but those are the two that I'm most familiar with. And they have just adrenal complex. Sometimes they come in tincture form, which is my favorite. It doesn't necessarily taste good because it's an alcohol base, but I love being able to taste your medicine or capsules. But these are some of my favorites. And then in terms of vitamin C, so 2 to 6 grams, that's 2,000 to 6,000 milligrams. So that's not a high dose. It's really common for people to come in and say, oh, I'm taking a super high dose because it's 6 times the RDA. Well, the RDA, folks, is just above disease state, right? It's 2 standard deviations above disease state. Well, we want to live above and beyond disease state, right? For example, vitamin C deficiency is scurvy, right? So it was determined that if you have less than 50 milligrams a day of vitamin C over an extended period of time, you'll develop symptoms of scurvy. So the RDA is 55 milligrams or something like that. So don't be afraid when you pick up something. If it's water soluble, it means your body isn't going to store it. Don't be afraid of heavy dosing it. You can take vitamin C to bowel tolerance. I recommend doing it twice in a day, meaning that you'll start to get loose stool if you've taken too much vitamin C and then back off. Some people can take 20 to 30 grams before they start to get loose stool. So I think vitamin C gets underrated. There's so many new sexy products out there, but good old vitamin C, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's very easy to absorb. You can even get chewables. A good B complex, again, even once a day. I wrote 1 cap twice a day. Don't take your B vitamins late in the day. In fact, I recommend not taking them after 3. They could keep you up at night. So if you're like, God, I'm on this new program and all of a sudden I'm having a hard time sleeping, make sure you're not taking your B complex too late. So you could even try just 1, take it with breakfast or lunch, and see if it makes a difference with your workout. You won't oftentimes find B12 and B complexes because it's hard to absorb orally, which is why you oftentimes see it in a sublingual form. And so that's what I recommend if you want to supplement with B12. Don't worry about labs. Some people say, oh, I should have my B12 tested, and just clinically, I haven't seen it make a difference. I've seen people with high levels of B12 that come in and say, I just feel better when I'm getting my B12 shots. So I'm actually more interested in how you're feeling than what the lab says, unless you're in a disease state or there's something to be concerned about. B5, the adrenals also love. You could throw in a little zinc and a little B6, but if you just wanted to do, like the first thing I would say would be the B complex. If you're like, I just want to do one thing. I'm willing to take 1 pill a day. Take a B complex. That's what you'll notice faster. The adaptogen herbs take a little time because they're actually healing the adrenals. So give them a little time to kick in. And B6. B6 will make you a little nauseous, so make sure you take it with food. And this is the stuff I said I wasn't going to talk about, but of course you got to talk about it, a little bit anyway. Learning to relax and slow down, and that's one of the things I love about the exercise program, right? We all feel better after we work out. We have that cortisol release, we get that endorphin rush, we're like, bring it on, I can take on the world. Sometimes it can be helpful to have some inhibitory neurotransmitters just to calm things down a little bit. Nothing can replace sleep. Nothing, 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 nothing. Patients come in and they've got this long laundry list of things, and I'm like, where's sleep? It has to be number one. It just has to be number one. Did I write reduce stress twice? Eating protein every 3 to 4 hours. I was just talking with Paige about this. One of the things that's really important is if you're working out in the morning, you're like, I don't have a big appetite, I can't eat breakfast, I'm going to this 8 o'clock workout class or this 9 o'clock class. Take some protein. I'm a big fan of good quality protein powders. Get a scoop, take a jar, mix it with some coconut water or a nut milk and shake it up. And it's super easy to digest. You won't even notice it when you go to your workout, and you'll notice that you feel so much stronger after your workout. If you imagine you've been fasting for how long? You had dinner at 7 o'clock the night before, or maybe you had a handful of popcorn at 9 or something, and here it is, 9 o'clock the next day, and what are you asking your body to do? No wonder you're so wiped out afterwards, and it's hard to recover. So, good quality. Just go to Staff of Life or Whole Foods or whatever and ask them. They're good protein powders. I'm a big fan of Mediclear by Thorne. At least minimizing caffeine. Don't do it on an empty stomach. Have a little protein with it. If you have protein in the first hour of waking up, you'll notice that your blood sugar is much more stable through the day. I promise you, if it's another little nugget that you just want to try, I'm willing to try one thing. Just have a little protein that first hour of waking up. It'll stabilize your blood sugar throughout the whole day. Great, and I already told you all of that. And we talked a little bit about that. And then this is just the connection, which I also already mentioned. We don't have enough time. If we had another half hour, I'd love to talk about thyroid, but I just want to note the importance of, when we're talking about the adrenals, we're talking about the endocrine system. The endocrine system are glands that secrete hormones. Our ovaries, our testes, our adrenals, our thyroid, our hypothalamus and pituitary. That's why it's so common to see anxiety, depression, low thyroid, irregular menses, low levels of testosterone. So making sure that your whole endocrine system is balanced. Again, like what I said on page 1, the adrenals don't exist out here, not attached to everything else. And we just don't have time to talk about everything else, but the adrenals are like, there's this story that I read to my son, and it's a Dr. Seuss story about the turtles. They just keep piling on the top. And anyway, the guy on the bottom is like crushing, and that's our foundation, our adrenals. Great. That's it.
Q&A, and then Michelle and I will come up after and pick the winners for the prizes. So yeah, Q&A for Dr. Tonya.
Can you put the list of items up again?
Or the vitamins? Sure.
Can you email me that PowerPoint and I can send that out?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do that, and I'll put it back up also.
You still recommend shots on top of the
I do.
And can all of these be taken at breakfast?
Yes and no. It depends on the type of breakfast you eat. If you're going to have a half a cup of yogurt, you'll end up nauseous.
2 eggs and a V8?
Well, we should talk about the V8. But, basically, everything can be taken. The only concern is that you might get a little nauseous because of the B6. If you get a little nauseous, just make sure you eat a little more. But otherwise, everything can be taken in the morning. The vitamin C, if you can take it in 2 doses, but if you don't get your second dose in, you get your morning dose in.
Right? The B6 we find at lunch when I have like a larger one.
Totally. Yep.
Is there any one of us here who would not potentially benefit from the B12 shot?
Well, asking me, no. Because I really believe provide the body with the proper nutrients it needs to heal. And that's all it needs, And I can't tell you how many times it's so fun because we do this B12 happy hour on Wednesdays where so many people come every week and they're not changing anything else in their lives, which is fascinating, right? Because if you're my patient, I got you on all sorts of stuff, right? I can't tell you, people say I have less anxiety, I feel calmer. I was about to have hip surgery and I don't have that inflammation anymore. I have a patient who was starting to walk sideways. He's walking, he's elderly, he's walking straight now. Vitamins and minerals, do I know why? No. I don't know exactly why. Yes.
So, other than B12, are all of these things that you can get through nutrition?
Oh, even B12, it's just harder to absorb orally. But yeah, oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. And that's why we call them supplements. They're supplements for a healthy diet. But what I say is that a healthy, we live in a toxic world. We're so blessed to live here in Santa Cruz. But there are not glass globes around our organic farms, right? We're getting air pollution from China. Now, who knows what's coming through our oceans and our fish, right? And into our soils. We live in a toxic world. We have and we live in a world where we tend to, not everyone, but we tend to move a lot faster than our grandmothers and our grandparents' generations, right? We're always on the go. And so we have a higher demand for nutrients. So I recommend, why not throw your body extra vitamins and minerals, and if it's saturated, hallelujah, I'll just pee them out.
Do you have a particular company that, as far as the vitamins go, that you recommend?
Well, I would recommend most at Staff of Life or Whole Foods or New Leaf. Most brands are good. I'm not a big fan of New Chapter. They were bought out by Procter & Gamble, which has a little bit of question their integrity. But otherwise, vitamin C is pretty well absorbed. It doesn't have to be a fancy brand. The herbs I mentioned. And I honestly, because I have a medicinary in my office, I'm not 100% familiar with what's on the shelves at the health food stores. But I would just ask someone there. A Way of Life on 41st is also an excellent source.
First thing for melatonin, we talked about 3 grams.
Milligrams.
3 milligrams. Is that something that you think that people need to take on, people in menopause need to take on a regular basis?
People on a what?
People after menopause or but I have to take a regular basis, or just for a month, or does your melatonin start working after a while?
It really depends on you. Right, it really depends on you. If you're getting good sleep, you don't need to supplement with melatonin.
Right.
If
you're not.
But if you're not, yeah, and then just see how it goes.
It wouldn't be a problem if you were to take 6 months of it, or
I've been taking melatonin nightly since my son was born, and he's almost 3, because he doesn't sleep through the night. Yeah, and sometimes I've gone away and forgotten it, and I sleep better because I'm away and he's not there, and I don't have my melatonin, so it's not addictive, so it's completely fine and safe. And like I said, for patients with cancer, I don't care about how they're sleeping. I have them on 20 milligrams of melatonin. And I just want to say, about 1 in 7 people, I'm just making up that number, get nightmares on melatonin. So if you take it once and you have really bad dreams, then you just aren't someone who could take melatonin. I don't know why that is, but yeah, you could try a lower dose. You could try 1 milligram, 1 to 3 milligrams. Yes.
I was curious about your 3 to 4 hours of protein. I was wondering what ideas would you suggest for that?
For protein? Yeah. So protein powders are always a good option for on the go, right? You get out of work at 5 and you're trying to make that 6 o'clock class. You don't really have time to eat. It's very easy to digest. Otherwise, good sources of protein, animal protein is the easiest protein because it's the highest in protein. So eggs, hard-boiled eggs are great on the go. Lean meats, grass-fed meats. Nut butters are great. I'm a big fan of dipping an apple or celery or carrot into a nut butter. Cheese is good protein. Yogurt is good protein. Sprouted grains have the protein more bioavailable, so they actually have higher levels of protein. But yeah, eating protein every 3 to 4 hours throughout the day. It's so common for people to say, I just get this craving at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I have to have a scone and a coffee. And then we look at their diet and it's like, well, you ate lunch at 11 o'clock, you fool, you're hungry. It's been 4 hours. And so one of the tricks that I do on myself and I suggest to other people is that when you have that craving for something sweet, it's probably a signal that your body's hungry. So I tell myself, okay, I'm gonna eat a little protein, and if I still want that cookie, I can have it. Yes.
How often should you get an E shot?
So I recommend once a week for 4 weeks in a row. And the reason that I do that is because it's very common for people to come in after their first shot say, whoa, I felt amazing for 2 to 3 days. And then after the second shot, wow, I felt great for 4 or 5 days. And by the 4th shot, people are noticing that they feel good all week long. And then after that, it's completely up to the individual. It depends on your diet, it depends on your gastrointestinal health, it depends on what your lifestyle looks like. Some people come every week, some people come once a month.
And the other cocktail as well?
The what?
The cocktail.
Oh, the Myers cocktail, I just mentioned that because I'm so excited about those. But again, it's very individualized because everyone is unique. For people that come in and they're really burnt out, I often have to recommend a series of 3 once a week or 1 every 2 weeks. I have some patients who are super hardcore athletes, and some of them come in before a race or once a month just because it sustains them. And so it also depends on what level of vitality you're going for, right? If you're like, whoa, I just want to feel a little better versus I feel great and I want to keep feeling great. But I'm also happy, I offer free 15-minute, it's not necessarily a consultation, but if you thought that you might want to work together and had some questions, feel free to call me. I'm super happy to answer some general questions that you might have, but of course I can't offer any medical advice without knowing you. Any other questions? Great, well thank you so much for talking to me.